Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Protect the Vote, a virtual town hall on the subject of exercising your right to vote safely during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Brian Green from the California State Senate. And in the middle of everything else the year 2020 has brought us so far, we are now, as we speak, just about 5 weeks out from what anyone who is working on it or has signed up to work it or who has read about it can tell you, one of the most extraordinary presidential elections in our current history. An election that has already been impacted and even disrupted during the primaries and the conventions by the coronavirus pandemic. Luckily, we all live in the state of California, with a large, diverse electorate, a record number of registered voters this year, and a state and local election system that is already weather tight against many ballot box and ballot counting challenges that could come up this year. But even as California elections officials get ready to mail ballots to all of the state's millions of registered voters, as was mandated by the governor's executive order earlier in our pandemic year, there is still the expectation that some portion of the electorate will still decide to participate in person during the pandemic, requiring a delicate focus on the nexus between voters' rights and security and public health. On this webinar, we're going to talk with our national, state, and local elected representatives about that delicate balance between voting rights and security and health during this pandemic, the new laws passed and the efforts that are in place to secure voter safety and security before, during, and after the November 3rd election. Let me introduce you to our webinar participants. All of us, as is now commonplace, socially distanced from each other for this conversation. First, I'll introduce the lead for this online discussion, the Honorable Tom Umberg, our state senator from the 34th Senate District, representing Orange County and the cities of Anaheim and Fountain Valley and Garden Grove, Huntington Beach and Midway City and Santa Ana and Westminster. Senator Umberg is the chair of the Senate Elections Committee, the Elections and Constitutional Amendments Committee, and is also the co-chair of the Senate Select Committee on the 2020 Census, which is another whole discussion. He's had his hands full this year. So Senator, welcome. Good to see you, sir. Welcome back.
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm really pleased that you could moderate our discussion here, and I'm even more pleased that we have some folks who are part of our group here who are really election leaders here in California. I see Mike Levin. Mike represents Orange and San Diego counties. Mike was elected in 2018 and has been a champion, an environmental champion, and a champion for fair and free elections here in California, in particular, making sure that the post office is held accountable. And as I'll mention in a minute, the post office plays an incredibly important role this year in this year's election. We also have Secretary of State Alex Padilla. Alex has been the Secretary of State now for about 6 years as Secretary of State. And Alex has really led the charge. Secretary of State Padilla has really led the charge to make sure that Californians, particularly this year, every active registered Californian has an opportunity to vote either by mail or by drop box or in person. And I have personally witnessed his advocacy to make sure that, one, that we have a process in place that allows that to happen. And two, we have the resources in place. In fact, there's $35 million in the state budget to make sure that Californians are educated as to why this election is different and how they can vote this year. We also have Neil Kelly, and I'm going to steal a little of Secretary of State Padilla's thunder because I've heard Neil Kelly described by folks all over the state as the finest registrar of voters in California. I've heard that many times. And I guess I'll let Secretary of State Padilla say how recently I've heard that comment in just a moment. But I want to just set a little bit of a frame around this conversation. This election is going to be different than any election we've ever had in California or in any place in the country. And those of us who've been involved in politics for a while have said more than once, this is the most important election. But this really is the most important election of our lifetime. And that's why the people on this Zoom meeting have worked so hard to make sure that every Californian has an opportunity to vote. You can even register to vote, not just voting, but also registering to vote. You can register to vote all the way up to and including on election day. If you choose for whatever reason, or you can't return your ballot by drop box or by mail, you can return it to a polling place or a vote center on election day. If you haven't registered, you can also register at a polling place or a vote center on election day. The Secretary of State and Registrar Kelly have done an excellent job of also making sure that our votes are secure this year. That, for example, there's a barcode on every mail-in ballot that comes in, and it's checked against the barcode held by the registrar to make sure also that signatures match, so that the incidence of fraud is virtually nil. In fact, I would say it is nil. So I won't say it's nil, I'll say it's nil. So let me conclude by once again thanking all of you. I believe I'm turning it back over to Brian or over to Congressman Levin.
Either way, actually, I was going to turn it over to Congressman Levin too.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a
All
privilege to be on this panel with you. Congressman Levin, just some initial reflections and thoughts as we begin this discussion tonight.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, and thank you to my friend Senator Tom Umberg for bringing us all together. Truly a leader in Sacramento for many years, and grateful to get to continue to work with you. Thanks also to my friend Secretary Padilla, who I think is doing a fantastic job. You said that he'd been around 8 years. It might feel like 8 years after the last year, might feel like 3, trying to navigate an election during a pandemic. But very grateful to Secretary Padilla for really just the fundamental notion that if you are eligible to vote, we want to make it easier for those who are legally eligible to vote, not harder. We don't want disenfranchisement. We don't want to put up barriers to people's voting. And just the same, I want to thank our registrar, Neil Kelly, who I've watched in action now for the last 15 years or so. And he's just done a fantastic job. In fact, today, about an hour ago in my mailbox was our sample ballot for both my wife and myself. And I had a chance to go through that and very comprehensive in terms of all the things that you're doing, all the precautions that you're taking with regard to COVID. And I'm sure you're going to be talking about some of those things that you're doing. But again, the premise that we want to provide more flexibility, more options to people so that they don't have to choose between their health and exercising their vote. I think that's what this is all about. So I look forward to a discussion about all of this. Obviously, get out there and vote. This is an incredibly important election, regardless of who you support. We need everyone to vote. And we also have to maintain and protect the United States Postal Service, the integrity of the Postal Service to, again, provide that flexibility for people to be able to vote by mail. They can use one of the drop-off locations that the registrar has put throughout the county, one of the polling or vote centers that the registrar is going to be making available from October 30 through Election Day. But also you want to be secure in the ability to put your mail or put your ballot in the mail. I am encouraged, I am confident that despite some of what we've seen from this new Postmaster General, that thanks to not one, not two, but now 3 court decisions in the last little bit, a lot of those more draconian measures are going to be blocked. And also in my conversations with some of our local and regional USPS stakeholders, that I do think we're going to have really a pretty fair and pretty easy process. And then, of course, thanks to our friends in Sacramento extending that deadline where the registrar can receive the ballot as long as it's postmarked by Election Day. I think it's 17 days now. So all of that being said, I think, yes, you can be confident that your vote will count. And I think everyone on this Zoom is a big reason why.
Thank you, Congressman. Secretary Padilla, can't think of a better introduction for you. Welcome, sir. I know it's a busy time, to say the least, for you and your team.
Well, thank you, Brian. It certainly is, but it's what we live for. We're here. If you're watching this session live, we're 36 days from Election Day, 5 weeks from tomorrow. If you're watching a repeat, check the calendar, but it is election season regardless. I want to thank Senator Umberg for taking the lead on pulling us all together, and of course, Representative Levin for his help at the federal level, and Registrar Kelly, the administrator we turn to at the local level. So as everybody can see, it takes a team effort to deliver our free and fair elections, the bedrock of our democracy. And it is an understatement to say this is the most consequential election in a generation. So regardless of your political leanings, our job is to make sure that we keep our elections accessible to everybody who's eligible and secure, right? For the last 4 years, we've heard a lot of questions about election security, but the COVID-19 pandemic has just added a whole nother layer to the challenge of administering elections. Yes, accessible, yes, secure, and now safe for voters and election workers alike. Let's not forget about the folks on the other side of the table when we're voting. We need to keep everybody as safe as possible and not make people choose between exercising their right to vote and protecting their health and that of their loved ones. So let me just sort of give a quick overview and a couple of quick recommendations for what to expect this November, and then defer to Neil Kelly on some Orange County specific information or to any details for depending on the questions that come up. But generally speaking, here's how November elections are going to work and what you can do to prepare starting today. First of all, if you haven't registered to vote yet, my question to you is, what are you waiting for? Because it's so easy in California. You can do it online this evening. Go to vote.ca.gov. A bunch of tools and resources there in one location, including registering to vote online. It takes just a couple of minutes. Now, I think most people watching are already registered to vote. And my recommendation to you is to verify your registration status. It's always a good idea before the election to make sure that your information is up to date and current, especially this election, your mailing address. As you're going to hear in a minute, every active registered voter will receive a vote by mail ballot for this November's election. So we want to make sure that Neil's office is sending it to you at your current address. Let's avoid any unnecessary delays or confusion. If you need to update your registration, go back to the register to vote function and update your information there, not just your address, but if you're willing to share an email address with us, let us communicate with you via email in real time if there's any changes or updates along the way between now and Tuesday, November 3rd. And the third thing you can do right now to get ready for the November election is to sign up for Where's My Ballot. I know it's ballot tracking has been offered in Orange County for some time now, but now any voter in the state of California can sign up to receive alerts by text message, by email, or by automated phone call on the status of their ballot through the delivery process. So if you sign up soon, you'll be notified when the county sends you your ballot, and you can start checking your mailbox in the days following. All the way through the county confirming when they have received your ballot and when your ballot has been counted. So ballot tracking, Where's My Ballot, is great for transparency of vote by mail because we know it's come under attack. You should trust vote by mail. You can trust vote by mail, but sign up for Where's My Ballot for the added transparency and assurance. But when you get your ballot in the mail, you actually will have options for how to return the ballot. Just to echo some of Senator Umberg's comments, you can mail it back. Thanks to the legislature and the governor, you don't even need to scramble for stamps. Return postage is prepaid, but we know the Postal Service has been in the news lately. I still think it's a reliable way to do it. If you prefer, you can deliver your ballot to any drop box in the county in the weeks leading up to the election, or as has been said, walk it into any in-person voting location both on or before Election Day. So multiple options for how to return your ballot. You choose the option you feel most comfortable with, but we're going to make sure you stay safe and healthy during this COVID pandemic. And if voter registration is any indicator, I'm expecting a very strong turnout this November. So for any questions you have for additional information, go to vote.ca.gov.
Secretary, thank you very much for that comprehensive information. It's very valuable. Always good to remind us of that. Registrar of Voters here for our Orange County, Neil Kelly. Welcome, sir. Good to have you with us and give you a chance to just reflect on things going on in your office and what we're doing 5 weeks out. And I actually read an interesting statistic today. The Orange County is the 5th largest voting jurisdiction in the U.S., serving more than 1.6 million registered voters. So, wow, you do have your job cut out for you this year.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for having me. And thank you so much to Senator Umberg for the invitation. And Brian, we actually just crossed the bridge over to 1.7 million voters.
Oh, wow.
So we have a new stat I need to update, which is great. And I just want to echo some of the comments that Secretary Padilla made and give you some specific dates of importance here in Orange County. And I feel it's really important as the chief election official for the county to be out here and speaking to as many people as I can, regardless of party, because I am the nonpartisan election official and charged with running the election here in the county. And as Representative Levin talked about, voter information guides were mailed last week. And so most of those will have already hit as we're speaking, and really important information in there, like he was pointing out, including a list of vote centers as well as drop boxes throughout Orange County that you can utilize. The next important date that's coming up is October the 5th. That's the date that I'm going to release all of the official ballots to individuals registered to vote in Orange County, all 1.7 million. That'll be a big mailing for us on October the 5th. So look for your ballot in just a few days after that. And then just to reiterate what Secretary Padilla was pointing out regarding tracking your ballot, I keep telling people, if you're going to track your pet food on Amazon, why aren't you tracking your ballot? So if you go to ocvote.com /confirm, you can look up all of your voter information and you can sign up for that tracking feature that Secretary Padilla pointed out. So just a real honor to serve as the election official for all of Orange County voters, and happy to be on this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. And gentlemen, we have some questions for you that have been submitted from residents, folks in the Orange County area. And I know, Secretary, you have a hard stop here in about 10 minutes. So there's a couple of these questions that are directed to you. So we'll get to those first. And I'll do, so I guess you could say, some moderator's privilege here. And even though several of these questions are directed to one or two of you gentlemen in particular, if the other ones who aren't necessarily called out here have any particular thing to say that they just really want to chime in on it, feel free to jump into the answer portion of this. So the first couple of questions, and this is actually for Secretary Padilla and for Mr. Kelly. This is from Jennifer from Huntington Beach. She says, I have heard many rumors on social media and even in the press that my ballot could get lost. So she has two questions. How do I know if my vote was counted? And what do I do if it was not counted?
Okay, great. And so let me go and ask Neil to fill in anything that I might have missed that he might recommend. So as I mentioned before, this ballot tracking tool is a wonderful tool, not just for us on the elections administration side, but for voters to have that ultimate transparency of seeing their ballot through the process, the confirmation messages when your ballot was received and counted. So that's how you can know for sure. I'm aware of the news stories and the rumor mill as well. So here's another great suggestion for official information about the rules and the process, whether it's on the voter registration side or your options for casting a ballot. As much as I monitor Facebook and Twitter, etc., get your information from the official sources. And you have them here tonight. Your registrar of voter in Orange County, Mr. Neil Kelly, or go to the official California Secretary of State's website, vote.ca.gov. And it's because different people have different levels of, different comfort levels with the various mechanisms for returning your ballot that we afford you so many options. I think you can rely on the Postal Service, mail it back. If you are hesitant about that, take your ballot to a ballot drop box anywhere in your county in the weeks leading up to the election, or you can drop it off in person at any in-person voting location. But you have multiple options. You have the alerts, and I'll let Neil chime in with what you can do if the day is upon us and you haven't gotten the confirmation that your ballot was received and counted, what your options are there. But before I turn it over to him, just one additional announcement for folks who prefer to vote in person or need to vote in person. Think of, like, can't go to the grocery store the same way anymore. So if you're going to go vote in person, bring your mask. Look for the signs. There'll be physical distancing, plenty of hand sanitizer on hand, masks there if you forgot yours, poll workers outfitted with PPE, all the public health guidelines implemented to keep voters and election workers safe.
Yeah, and I would just echo what Secretary Padilla talked about in tracking your ballot. That's going to be real important. And there's a couple of things that we can do to help you. If you still don't see that your ballot has arrived, or you don't receive a text message from my office indicating that we've received it, call us or contact us on chat, 714-567-7600. I don't like red tape, so I have operators picking it up. You won't get a recording. It'll go right to an operator. And let us assist you. Please do not go in and try and vote in person. If you've already cast your ballot and you've delivered it through the mail or through another option, let us help you to solve that problem. And we'll be here to assist you in that. And just one last piece on the USPS. I have met with our officials locally here on an ongoing basis. I have full trust and faith in those individuals, and we are working closely with them to monitor data. I'm not just taking their word for it. We're monitoring data on a daily basis.
Yeah. Last thing before the next question is, so if you're mailing your ballot back, the recommendation, Neil would agree, just do it sooner rather than later. You're going to get your ballot in the mail with plenty of time, at least 3.5 weeks before the election. You can hold on to the last day if you choose. We recommend earlier rather than later. California law says as long as it's postmarked on or before election day, for this election, it can arrive up to 17 days after the election and still be counted. So that postmark is important on or before election day. So bottom line is sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And I should just point out too, a couple of these questions may touch upon issues you have already brought up in your introductions and comments, but I don't think anything is lost by reaffirming and repeating for the sake of those who are watching. I think it's important for these specific facts, even if we have to hear it over and over again, it's important for them to, all of us to understand what's going on. This question also for you directly, Secretary Padilla. This is from Robert from Seal Beach. He says, it seems like more and more of our elections procedures, like registering to vote, are done electronically and online. Is cybersecurity or hacking a concern here in California? Are our systems safe?
Yeah, that's a great question. And trust me, it is on my daily checklist of things that we review and cover both at the state and at the local levels. So the good news I have to share is this. I proudly say that California has the safest election infrastructure of any state in the nation. Right. If we look at the infrastructure that we use to mark ballots, to cast ballots, to count the votes, all that equipment has to be tested and certified for use in California first. And California self-adopted higher security standards than what's recommended by federal agencies. And once again, the legislature and the governor have stepped up to the plate with the resources to help every single county in the state upgrade or replace older voting systems to newer systems, including Orange County. And Neil can answer maybe some specific questions there. So when it comes to, can our voting system be hacked? Can somebody flip the results? Seriously doubt that. By the way, among the requirements that we have in California are paper ballots and a voter verifiable paper audit trail, number one. Number two, the equipment can never be connected to the internet, so make it impossible to systematically hack or rig an election. And even after counts or recounts when called for, every county is required to conduct a post-election audit after every election before we certify the results. So we can feel good about the accuracy and integrity of the results. But I'll share this. This was not the question, but if you ask me what keeps me up at night from a potential interference standpoint, foreign and domestic, it's the prevalence of bad information, especially on social media as it pertains to the election. So once again, the reminder that for official, reliable information, go to the source, your county elections office or the Secretary of State. Don't believe everything you come across in your Twitter feed or on Facebook. Go to the official source.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. This next question actually is for Senator Umberg. This is Marisol from Santa Ana asking, and again, we've touched on this a little bit already, but please feel free to elaborate. What if I miss the voter registration deadline? Will I not be able to vote?
Well, Marisol, that's a good question as well. First of all, if you are concerned as to whether you're registered to vote or not, you can go to the Registrar of Voters website and find out whether you're registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, you can register to vote online. It's very, very easy. I believe you also, I've seen registration materials in post offices, and I'm going to let Neil respond. I think you can also call the registrar's office and they'll send you by U.S. Postal Service mail, a registration form. If all those things don't work, and I encourage you to register as soon as possible, if all those things don't work, you can go to a polling place or a vote center. In Orange County, we have vote centers, They'll be open from Friday through Tuesday, and you can register. People who work at the vote centers will register you to vote, so you can do it right there. And as was mentioned, it will be a safe experience. The workers will all be properly clad in PPE, and the place will be sanitized. Neil, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
No, Senator, I think you did a great job. I just would want to reiterate on the registration piece that we are seeing record numbers, as I think the Secretary alluded to, in registration. And the sooner that you can register, the better, because you can confirm your information, like Senator Umberg talked about. So I think that's really important. And again, if you wait until we are open at vote centers, October 30th through November the 3rd, we'll be able to look you up, your information, and if you're not registered, do it right on the spot.
All right, gentlemen, Secretary Padilla, I know you have a hard stop here just momentarily, so I wanted to thank you for being on with us. Any parting comments you have? A plug for the website, if nothing else, that you'd like to share with us here before you leave.
No, I guess to reiterate two things I mentioned earlier. For all information, go to vote.ca.gov. That's to register to vote, verify your registration status, signing up for Where's My Ballot. That's going to be a big deal for everybody this year. Cybersecurity information, that's there. Closer to the election, your voting locations, that's where you can look it up. And Neil, unless you're over capacity now, I'm going to make a pitch for poll workers. If you're willing, healthy, and able to work as a poll worker or know somebody who is, go to vote.ca.gov, click on poll worker, and your county will reach out to provide you the training, the PPE, and compensation, because poll workers do earn a stipend for their service. So I want to plug vote.ca.gov as the main resource for everybody. And for all voters, again, the two things to keep in mind is, number one, make a plan, decide how you're going to vote, whether it's by mail or in person, and do it early. Don't put it off to the final day, because the more people we can encourage to vote early should make for a smoother experience for everybody on Tuesday, November 3rd.
Secretary, thank you on behalf of the other gentlemen here for spending the time with us. I know it is a busy time. I wish you well and good luck here in the next few weeks, and we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure, in the future here. So take care.
Right.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Please stay safe.
Thank you for your leadership. Thanks.
Thank you very much. California Secretary of State Alex Padilla joining us in this conversation. Back to some questions. Congressman Levin, here's one for you. This is Rebecca from Anaheim. She says, I am very concerned that foreign powers like Russia are going to interfere with our election process once again. Should we be concerned about this election? And I guess, Congressman, you, as much as anybody, are in the good position to perhaps comment on that.
Well, the answer is yes and no. So I think Secretary Padilla just laid out all the reasons why California is more secure than most any other state when it comes to the potential for foreign interference. And I think, the good thing about our system is that it's decentralized. The bad thing about our system is that it's decentralized. So there are other states that may be far more vulnerable. And I do recall reading that in 2016, there were at least a couple states that ran into trouble with malware being installed on voting systems. I know that our registrar and others are working hard to make sure that that never even has the chance to occur, given the security of the system. And as Secretary Padilla said, nothing connected to the internet and so forth. I have to tell you that we have been briefed, and of course those briefings are classified by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And, it's unfortunate, but they recently said that they were going to cease doing the in-person briefings of members of Congress. Very frustrating, because those briefings are more than just getting, information one way. They're giving us the opportunity as members of Congress to ask questions on behalf of our constituents about Russia or other countries, China, Iran, and others that potentially might try to interfere to destabilize our system, to create a lack of confidence in our process, and ultimately to plant seeds of doubt among the American people with regard to the security of our elections. I also can tell you that we've been trying very hard to work on a bipartisan basis to get the necessary resources to have more secure elections. And to prevent foreign interference in our elections. We put $400 million in the CARES Act at the end of March. That was a bipartisan bill for COVID relief. And Of course, it's up to secretaries of state to determine whether or not they're going to take the funds and use them as appropriate. We've asked for another $3.6 billion for election security, which is what the Brennan Center, nonpartisan institution out of NYU Law School, has said is necessary to keep our elections secure. We're going to keep fighting for that money. In fact, just today, we released a new version of our HEROES Act. It's another $2.2 trillion bill that would include the $3.6 billion necessary for election security. We're going to keep at it. We're also going to continue to demand that we get those in-person briefings from the ODNI, because it's just critically important that we have a better understanding of what's happening. So we'll keep at it, and we'll try to achieve on a bipartisan basis those results to protect the American elections and just to ensure that there's confidence in our democratic institutions.
All right, thank you, Congressman. A question for you, Registrar Kelly. This is Jonathan from Garden Grove. Could you clarify when the counting process will begin for mail-in votes and how long it'll take us to get results in Orange County?
Sure, thank you. That's a great question too. And we are going to start processing ballots the next day after I mail them on October the 5th. So if somebody gets their ballot and they want to return it, we're going to start work on that immediately. The legislature, as you folks well know, obviously, has allowed for the processing of those ballots now 29 days ahead of Election Day instead of the 10 days that we used to do it previously. So that's going to give election offices a much better head start moving into it. I do want to say that a few days after the primary in March, one of the first things that I did was to double our automation and scanning capacity, because I realized if everything continued the way it was going with COVID, we could have an all-mail ballot election in the fall. That could have happened. So we're in a very good position here in Orange County for the infrastructure for handling the ballot counting. And by election morning, we will have all ballots ready to process and tally by election night at 8:05. So everything I receive up until election morning. So what will be left are the ballots that are mailed on that day or dropped off on that day to process. All the in-person ballots will be counted and tallied by election night as well. And election night can go to about midnight for us. So the answer to the question is there's going to be a huge number of ballots that will be posted at 8:05 on election night.
Oh, Brian, let me just add a little bit to Registrar Kelly's answer, is that, as wonderful a job as you've done, Registrar Kelly, is that there will be races that won't be determined on election night. There will be, because we allow for ballots to be received up to 17 days after the election. Folks should know that both here locally and even more importantly, nationally, there will be many, many races that won't be determined until several days after the election, particularly in other states as mail-in ballots become more prevalent. You know, folks just need to know that. So, thank you, Neil.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that too. I mean, you know, we have 30 days in California to count the ballots. I mean, that is what's baked into the law. I anticipate that we will probably, based on our volume and our automation right now, probably have those races, the majority of those counted within 2 weeks after Election Day, to the Senator's comments.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Another question for Congressman Levin. This is from Stephen from Westminster. He says, I have seen mail blue boxes removed from my neighborhood, and there seems to be mixed messages to whether the United States Postal Service will deliver my ballot on time. Should we trust the United States Postal Service? And I know Registrar Kelly had an affirmation about that complication earlier in his comments, but Congressman, from your perspective, nationwide as well, what do you say?
Well, it's a similar answer to the last one, which is yes and no. I think in Southern California, I think, frankly, we're doing fine. My conversations with our regional and district folks at the USPS give me great confidence that they're going to be able to process the mail ballots appropriately, that to the extent that blue collection boxes have been removed, that a lot of those removals were scheduled in advance of recent reporting around Louis DeJoy and some of the changes that he has put in place. Nationwide, it's a more complicated story. I can tell you that for the last 12, 13 years, the USPS has been in very tough had a very tough financial situation because of a 2007 law that then President Bush signed that basically capped certain revenues and really expanded a lot of the liabilities of the USPS, the prepayment of 75 years of pension obligations and so forth. And that has really hamstrung USPS. So even before the pandemic, there was a need for some relief from Congress. And the USPS Board of Governors, prior to Louis DeJoy becoming Postmaster General, back in April, they told the Congress at our request that the USPS needed a $25 billion lifeline to make its way through the pandemic and the election. And so our desire to provide them with that didn't just come out of thin air. It was their request for the Board of Governors. We included a $10 billion loan in our HEROES Act, our CARES Act at the end of March. We then added an additional $25 billion in the HEROES Act in May. The CARES Act became law, the HEROES Act has not, but the need has not gotten any less significant for USPS. And it really is a bipartisan initiative, Brian, with regard to that funding. I led a letter of 137 members, both Republicans and Democrats, asking for that money. So we're going to keep at it. We're going to keep fighting for those funds. I do know that as the USPS transitions from fewer letters to more parcels, that means that the need for letter sorting machines has lessened and the need for parcel sorting machines has grown. So we're going to do everything we can to continue to provide that essential service to the American people. And it's been a particular concern for things like prescriptions. You know, I've got 45,000 veterans in our district, many of whom are used to getting their prescriptions from the VA. 3 or 4 or 5 days are now taking weeks. So this is very serious, and we're going to do everything we can to help the structural challenges at USPS. And of course, as I mentioned before, there are now 3 court decisions to enjoin some of the more draconian measures that this Postmaster General has put in place to get through our election. So yes and no, I feel confident for Southern California.
Okay, thank you very much, Congressman. Senator Umberg, a question from Mark from Anaheim. We'll let you reaffirm what's already been touched on here a few times in this conversation. What is the deal with voter fraud, Mark asks? Is it prevalent, and what can we do about it?
A couple of thoughts. One is thank you, Congressman Levin, for your efforts with respect to the Postal Service. It's really important that we have an election that people have confidence in, and the Postal Service plays a key role, and you're holding it accountable is really important. So thank you, number one. Number two, in terms of fraud, and Neil Kelly can weigh in on this. I've chaired elections in the Assembly, chaired elections in the Senate. We've investigated this. Secretary of State's investigated. It's basically non-existent, particularly in California, and even more particularly in Orange County. The issue of the actual, as Secretary of State Padilla mentioned, actually someone intervening in the system, somehow invading the system, it really can't happen because none of the voter systems are connected to the internet, number one. Number two, there is a paper trail. You may push buttons, but you're going to get a paper printout of your actual ballot. Number three is that the barcodes with respect to mail-in voting, as well as the checking of the signatures, and the fact that you can't vote twice, and Mr. Kelly mentioned, you know what, if you voted by mail, do not show up at the poll and try to vote. Again, if your ballot hasn't been received, then you can call the registrar and they can help you walk through the issue. And I actually, this is a bit beyond our ken, but I believe that most, in fact, all the other states are very concerned about the integrity of their election system. It is a critical element in our democracy, and I think it's taken very seriously by registrars, certainly in California, I know that, and I think virtually all over the United States. So Neil, if you wanted to add anything to that, I'd be happy to include you.
Well, thank you, Senator. I just very briefly on the topic of election security in general, a few years ago, the election infrastructure was placed into what's called critical infrastructure, which means that we are on the same level now as dams, the electrical grid, aviation, you name it. And what does that do? That brings us additional resources. Since 2016, I have been appointed to the Homeland Security Election Security Task Force, And I work closely weekly with the FBI, Homeland Security, and our local law enforcement fusion center on election security. And we take it very seriously, as the senator pointed out. And if we see anomalies or issues, we work with our district attorney and we work on these issues. But by and large, I feel very confident in the security and soundness and integrity of our system.
All right. The final question here actually is for you, Registrar Kelly. This is Nicholas from Long Beach, sort of asking a feet on the ground question here. How can I become an election worker?
Well, we'd love to have you. Our pool is actually about double the size we need right now, but we're still taking applications at ocvote.com/jobs because people, things come up and people drop out, and we understand that. We are right in the middle of training, and that will continue for the next several weeks on the training side. So we'd love to have people join us. And as the secretary pointed out before he left, we do pay you. And in fact, here in Orange County, it's not a volunteer stipend system. It is actually an hourly based system. And we bring you on as a temporary employee. So love to have you and join us. Be a great experience.
And it looks great on the resume too. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. How do they do that? Do they go online and?
Yes, sir. At ocvote.com/jobs.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real easy.
Gentlemen, that is all of the pre-submitted questions that we have for you tonight. I really am grateful to you for your comments and your conversation, your wisdom, your answering of the questions. And I'll just give each of you a final moment for some final reflections, some reaffirmations of things you may have already said, but just to drive the point home to those who may be watching that elections are safe here in Orange County, and all of the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the appropriate systems are put into place to make this a secure election as possible. Registrar Kelly, I'll give you just a final word here if you have some comments to make.
Great, thank you. I do. And I just want to say thank you again to all the voters and new voters that are coming on board and registering for the first time. It's going to be an exciting election, either way you look at it. And we're looking forward to delivering a smooth and fully secure election to the voters of Orange County. And I do want to say one last thing on the USPS. I was meeting with our local postmaster the other day, and he reminded me that the post office at Christmas time delivers 4 billion Christmas cards. That's not even close to the number of ballots that are going to be sent out nationwide. So we have confidence in that process. And again, thank you to all the voters in Orange County.
All right. Thank you very much, Registrar Kelly. Congressman Levin, just some final words.
Well, I think we'd be in better shape as a country if Neil Kelly could just clone himself and be available to all the voters of all 50 states. Look, it's going to be a different election because of this pandemic. And I think the fundamental principle is one of preparedness and having a plan. And I'm very grateful to Registrar Kelly for the comprehensive and thoughtful plan that he put forward that was, again, reprinted in today's sample ballot that we received. I think that, so long as people have a plan, and think about how they want to vote, when they want to vote, I think we'll all be fine. Again, we're talking about 80 million mailed in ballots, and that's something that the USPS can absolutely handle. And I think everyone agrees on that. So I hope that, common sense and calmer heads prevail on this. I want to thank Senator Umberg for everything he's doing in Sacramento to really lead on this issue and throughout Orange County as well. And even though he's gone, I want to thank Secretary Padilla for really being a national leader when it comes to best practices. And again, I think that California has it right. Again, that fundamental principle that if you are legally eligible to vote, we want to make it easier for you to do so. We want to protect your health. We want to make sure that you can exercise that most important constitutional right. So I thank you, Brian, for moderating, and I thank you, Registrar Kelly and Tom, for all that you do, and get out there and vote.
Thank you, Congressman. Some final words from our host for this webinar, Senator Tom Umberg.
Well, thank you for joining me with the Neil Kelly fan club.
Yes.
I'm proud to be a member of that fan club. I want to thank you, Michael, for your leadership on so many things. But again, let me underline your leadership with respect to making sure that this election is fair and done in a way that we can all be proud of. I think we will. Neil, as we've said, you've done an excellent job here in Orange County, and I know you'll do an excellent job in the November election. Brian, thank you. And a special shout out to my staff, Nick Anas and my staff who put this all together. Really, I'm just the face that shows up occasionally, but they did the work to make this all happen. So without further ado, everybody, make sure you vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tom Umberg. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this Protect the Vote Town Hall. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure. I know the next few weeks will be times of vigilance and concern and focus, but I wish you all well. And so on behalf of Senator Tom Umberg from the 34th Senate District, Congressman Mike Levin from the 49th Congressional District, our own California Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and our own Orange County Registrar of Voters, Neil Kelly. I'm Brian Green from the State Senate. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I wish you peace of mind and safety when voting next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.